Hello everyone. Welcome back to Owensboro, Kentucky, and welcome once again to the living room and the makeshift studio. Today is the last day of August in the year 2024. August 31, 2024. Excuse me. Before I go any farther, I want to say that this video and future videos, when you see them on your computer, are most likely going to look differently than they have for quite a while. For quite some time, Leonard from the Tampa Bay, Florida area has been taking the raw footage, the raw video, and uploading it to YouTube. And when he's done that, he's added a very nice cover page and a little introduction, and then he normally has some type of little ending on the end. And I think Leonard has done an excellent job in doing all of that. I really do. However, Leonard communicated first with Don, and then after I urged him to let me know what was going on, he basically told Don that he was not going to be doing this anymore, uploading the videos. The reasons, I do not know. Leonard stated a couple of things that to me sounded more like excuses and not reasons. And maybe they were completely above board. But I just have a feeling he hasn't, or he did not, tell me the whole story. Leonard never actually communicated directly with me. All he did was forward a text which he had sent to Don. And I thought, that wasn't very honorable, Leonard. You should have told me in person. You should have called me up on the phone. But you chose not to do so, which makes me question just really what's going on. I have my ideas, I have my thoughts, and if I had to bet, I bet that my ideas are correct. But I'm not going to say anything more about it, because if I do, I'll just, I will express my disappointment in graphic terms. That's a nice way of saying that. So in the future, we're going to have to find somebody else to help us out on uploading the material from the memory card onto YouTube. There is a possibility that Luke might very well be doing that. Now, I do know that this is a very busy time for Luke. On September 5th, Luke is taking his first attempt at passing the Kentucky insurance exam. Now, Luke's even said, I may not pass it the first time. And then he said, I know people. Don, I get this. I think he mentioned he knew somebody that had taken it 20 or 26 times before they finally were able to pass it. Luke says the Kentucky exam is much harder than most other areas or other states in this general area, like Kentucky and Tennessee or Indiana and Tennessee. So I do wish Luke all the best of luck and good skill and good outcome, and we'll just have to see how that goes. So in the future, when this video shows up, it might not have all the fancy bells and whistles that we have grown accustomed to. But the biggest part of the message, I don't think people tune in just to see what's on the cover page. I think they tune in to see what we are going to say from the Bible and about the Bible. And I do, again, I hope and pray that Jesus will give us some guidance and some assistance in being able to quickly find out a way where we can post or upload that material onto YouTube. Now there's another website, and Leonard has always said it gets many more viewers than YouTube does. So again, has all of this rocked the boat? I would say that's a true story. Don, a few years back, wasn't there a song, a pop song entitled "Don't Rock the Boat, Baby"?
Yeah.
Don't rock the boat, baby.
Quite a few years back.
Quite a few years back. Yeah, we're going back in time. Well, all of this has greatly rocked the boat. And I can't help but to think it's unnecessary.
Satan always gets involved.
You heard what Don said. I do not disagree with what Don just said. So, but Jesus Christ, He'll figure out a way to help us to keep going. Now, before I go any farther, I've already mentioned Luke. Earlier this week, a few days ago, I went up to a school up the river, about an hour's drive away, to officiate some high school volleyball, a freshman, JV, then a varsity match. And I think most of you have figured out now that Luke and I communicate quite often throughout the day, through text messages. Occasionally we will have a telephone call, but most of the time it's done through the little fancy phone. And well, let me just open it up and read you a few passages. It tells a story, and the story actually is a prelude to another story that has a biblical theme to it. So I'm not just reminiscing here about the things that Luke and I talked about, where I'm doing this because we're going from step A to step B to step C. So let me get I write, now I am up at this school. Again, it's about an hour's drive away. And I said, Luke, the JV match is over, no problems. The gym is cold enough to store meat. I believe I want to go outside just to warm up. Now that particular day here in Kentucky was, I think, the hottest day of the year for us. It was very hot, and Luke was working. He basically is working outside. And well, I'll continue the story. I said, are you home from work yet? I'm sure a shower would feel great after sweating the whole day. But I said, there will be no sweating in this gym tonight. And then I end up by saying, all my best wishes and support. And then a little later, about 8:15, I'm still up at the gym. I'm still being a volleyball official. But between one of the games, you have games where they actually call them sets using the volleyball terminology. I had time to go to my phone to check to see if Luke had sent anything to me. And unfortunately, he did. Very short text. He said, Michael, I am injured. I unfortunately dropped a railroad tie on my foot, and I'm pretty sure my toe is broken. Well, I wrote back, that's terrible. Which foot, which toe, are you able to walk? And then I said, I'm sorry. Luke eventually, while I'm still up at the gym, up at the game, he writes back and says, I'm hobbling everywhere. It was my right toe and part of my foot. I'm pretty sure I'm done for. And I think he meant by that, I'm pretty sure I have broken things and that I'm not going to be able to work for a long time, which would be a major disappointment for Luke. And and a major obstacle for him because he needs the income just to pay his bills. I wrote back, do you need some crutches? Now, Don, look over your right shoulder. What do you see over there?
Your crutches.
Yes. I have an assortment of things to help me walk, folks. I said, do you need some crutches? I have some. And so finally I get back into town, and I ask him again, how is your foot doing? And he tells me, this is before he goes to bed that night, he says, my whole foot is throbbing. I'm probably going to go to urgent care in the morning. Urgent care is a medical office, and instead of going to the hospital, or instead of having to wait to get in to see a doctor, there are quite a few of these things here in town. I know about 3 or 4 of them at least, maybe 5. And he's saying, well, in the morning, I think I'm going to have to go to urgent care. And I wrote back, will you be able to work tomorrow? And then I said, that's too bad. My prayers will be with you. And I asked him again, do you need the crutches? I said, do you need my help in any way? Just ask and I'll be there. So scrolling forward in time, the next morning I wrote, Luke, how are you and your foot doing? My prayers are with you. And then I said, I'm out of bed. What about you? How is your foot? Are you able to walk? Have you seen a doctor? Did you have x-rays taken? Is anything broken? Please let me know your situation. Is there anything which I can do for you? Hoping and praying the very best for you, Michael C. And then he wrote back, good morning, Michael. My foot is doing better. Now get this, Don. This is like a half day later after his injury. Remember, a railroad tie. Those things are big chunks of wood.
175 to 225 pounds.
Wow, and if you're going to drop it, you probably hit a sharp edge. The corner of the edge.
Yep.
But he says, good morning, Michael. My foot is doing better. The swelling has gone down. I can kind of walk on it now. I should be good in a few days. I'm going to give it some time to heal, and it should be fine. I could go to urgent care, but they are just going to tell me to wrap it up and be careful, so I might as well not go. As of right now, I'm doing good. Thank you for your prayers. And I wrote back, I'm extremely relieved and very thankful to hear that things are much better for you today. Are you home or are you at work? What are you actually doing? My prayers will continue to ask that the Magnificent One, one of my favorite names for Jesus Christ, that phrase, the Magnificent One. I've never heard it before by somebody else, but it sums up what I truly think about Jesus Christ. He is, of all beings, the ultimate Magnificent One. I said, I ask that the Magnificent One intervene and to help your foot and your toe to fully recover as soon as possible. My positive thoughts and prayers and love are always with you and always will be. Your devoted friend, Michael C. So another time I write and say, I do hope, wish, and pray that you and your foot keep improving. Has the swelling continued to decrease? Has the pain become less intense? Your welfare is at the highest level of my concern. I am totally desiring and wanting the very best for Luke. And then I informed my good friend Percy, who lives here in town, about Luke's situation. And Percy sent a text to me. This is what Percy wrote. "That is painful." And Percy went on to say, "In my younger days, I dropped a cinder block on my big toe." Now, how much do you think a concrete block weighs, Don?
Maybe 20 pounds.
20 pounds compared to what?
175 to 225.
Okay, to 200 pound plus probably.
Yeah.
He said, "I dropped this concrete block on my big toe and lost the nail and broke that knuckle. Ouch." That's what Percy had gone through when he was younger. And then I wrote a very supportive note. And then, yesterday, I received, this is a day after he hurt his foot. This is one day later. "I've been resting my foot. I am currently okay. I haven't been moving around much, but I've been studying for my insurance material. It's very boring." And I wrote back, I wrote some scriptures to him. I would love to talk about that, but I won't right now because I'll go off on a tangent. I said, "Thank you for your note. It is good to hear that your foot is currently okay. I hope it keeps rapidly improving. I am glad that you were able to study on your insurance material today. Yes, it probably is very boring, but please remember that passing that future insurance test is a doorway through which you must walk for the sake of your future hopes and dreams and plans. Once again, my positive thoughts, prayers, and love are always with Luke, and they always will be forever." And then I wrote him about some songs that I thought he would want to listen to. We do that quite often. Let each other know about some music that we think the other one would enjoy. And then I keep scrolling down. I said, I do hope and pray that I will hear from you soon. I wish that I could spend some time with Luke, maybe share another meal together. I am hoping and trusting and praying that your abused and damaged foot and toe are feeling better and doing better. I cringe and I wince when I try to imagine what that must have felt like. How much weight is that again, Don?
175 to 225 pounds.
Okay, that's more than I weigh, folks. Again, I wish that had never happened to you. Again, my positive thoughts, prayers, and love are always with you. Then he writes back. Now, folks, this is less than a day and a half after his accident. Less than a day and a half. And he writes me this short note. It's been a hot day, Michael. So sweaty. Lots of people. It's been way too busy already. I could use a good nap. And Don, he put a little emoji where the little face, and it has Z's coming out of it.
Snoozing.
Then I wrote the following. Thank you for your note. From what you wrote, I must presume that you are back at work. Overall, that's great news, meaning that you must be able to move around some, and your bank account will be pumped up some. How is your mobility? How does your foot and your toe actually feel? No pain, some pain, horrible pain. Again, my prayers and my love are always with you. Please be careful, in capital letters. I'm sure that you totally agree. Have a great afternoon. Until later, Michael C. Then he wrote back, I am able to walk. Not perfectly, but I'm trying my best. The more I stay on it, the more it hurts. And then he wrote this. Also, listen to the song, Too Good to Not Believe. Too Good to Not Believe by Brandon Lake. Now, we've talked about Brandon Lake. In fact, there was a sermon, I think a couple of weeks ago, in which we sort of went through and picked out some verses and analyzed a song which he had performed, which he had written and performed, entitled Graves into Gardens. And I don't know where Brandon got all of his information, but he said some things that very few people probably realize actually comes from the Bible. And it's ideas that very few people are going to know about. Well, Luke is the one who introduced me to Brandon's music. The first song that Luke ever encouraged me to listen to is called, now what is that song? Gratitude. An absolutely beautiful song, powerful words. The first few times I heard it, I could not hold back my tears. I said before, Brandon is a young man, and I'm guessing now he's in his early 30s. He has become interested in having a lot of tattoos on his, at least on his arms. That's what you can see. And I made a comment that once upon a time I attended a church for a while that was filled with judgmentalism, and its participants, especially its ministers, were filled, brimful and running over with self-righteousness. It's one of the main reasons I had to eventually drift away from that group. I just knew this isn't right. I often said of that group, and I still do say of them, that they often reminded me of a Clint Eastwood spaghetti western by the name of The Good, The Bad, and The Ugly. And yes, there were good things about that church and that organization. And yet, sadly, there were bad things about that organization. And some of the things, the more you got to know and learn about, there were some ugly things going on inside of that organization. Decades ago, I wanted nothing more to do with that organization, because it just wasn't, the organization would almost never say the name Jesus Christ. Now that is a dead giveaway. If you are around someone or some organization and the name Jesus Christ almost is never heard, of which is never spoken, that's a very powerful sign that you're in the wrong spot. Something is not healthy there. There is a disease taking place. And thankfully I did move away from that. And yet there are still people out there who cling to those old days and cling to those old messages and sort of idolize those ministers from back when. And I think they make a terrible mistake. I think they're making a mistake which theoretically could possibly cost them their eternal lives. That's how big I think the mistake is, which is one reason I want nothing to do with them anymore. I mean, a long time ago, nothing. And like I said, Brandon, he has longer hair. He has his tats. That organization would not have allowed him to walk in the front door. That's how particular they were about who they let through the front door. I often heard it said of that organization that in order to be invited to walk in the front door, you had to be perfect, and then you had to get better, which is basically impossible. They had the idea that by their works and by their determination, they were going to sort of will themselves into the kingdom of God. And as we're going to find out eventually later in the book of James, works without faith is dead. And faith without works is dead. Yes, you must have faith, you must have ideas based upon the Bible, but you also have to walk with Jesus Christ. And a part of that walking is accounted to you, accredited to you, as we're told in the book of Romans chapter 4, as righteousness. So it's a combination of both. But back in the old days, it was all about climbing up the ladder of success by yourself, and because you have demonstrated your loyalty and fidelity, you will automatically gain eternal life. Well, folks, it doesn't work that way. It just does not work that way. So Brandon wrote this song, Gratitude. And remember, I wore the hat that said, Be You Thankful. What am I wearing today, Don? I'm not sure.
To Jesus be the glory.
To Jesus be the glory. You can't beat that one. You cannot beat that. And Brandon fully realizes that concept that I'm wearing on my head today. To Jesus be the glory. And yet, even though he's a fantastic performer, a fantastic singer, he would not have been allowed through the front doors. And if he somehow would have snuck in, eventually 3 or 4 big, burly deacon types would have shown up and escorted him out. And if Brandon would have resisted, they probably would have dragged him out. Well, I tell you what, folks. If I had to put on some scales, remember down back in the old Western movies, you'd see these gold scales? And they put the gold powder or the gold dust on one side, and then they put these little weights to see how much it was.
Yeah.
5 ounces or whatever. And if there were a giant scale like that, a balance, and on one side of this balance there were representatives of that old of that old organization. And on the other side, there was Brandon by himself.
Mhm.
In my opinion, Brandon, because of his attitude of appreciation and gratitude, an attitude of gratitude. That almost rhymes, doesn't it, Don? I don't think I've ever said that before. An attitude of gratitude, of appreciation, of thanksgiving, of true worship of Jesus Christ. Brandon would have been more valuable than all of the rest of them put together.
That's like at the Supreme Court. You see this woman, she's got a blindfold on, holding the scale. It ain't what you see, it's what's inside the person.
Well, I would love to meet Brandon. I truly would. I'd love to go out and have a meal with him and just talk somewhere quiet. I think it would be a fascinating conversation. And I think there are things which Brandon could share with me that I would find uplifting and inspiring. And I think there are things which I could share with Brandon that he would find to be inspiring and worthy of thinking about. Yes, I truly would enjoy meeting the young man sometime. I have a sense that he's a very fine person. And again, no, I'm just not going to go there. Started to say something, but I'm not. Well, we had the song Gratitude, and then Luke encouraged me to listen to the song Graves into Gardens, which I did, and that one was so impressive to me that I basically spent an entire video dissecting the song and using biblical verses to point out how correct it was. And then Brandon, in that last text I read to you, said, also listen to the song Too Good to Not Believe by Brandon Lake. And so just a few moments after I received that text, I got on my computer, right over there. In fact, right now on my computer is Brandon Lake, and he is in the process of performing the song Too Good to Not Believe. Now, I would love to turn the computer on and allow the camera to pick it up, but I don't want to go afoul of copyright laws and things like that. So I'm not going to do that, but I will encourage all of you, if you're so inclined, go to YouTube, type in Brandon Lake, and type in Too Good to Believe. Now, as I said, let me get a quick drink of water. Right after I received that text, I did indeed listen to that song. And once again, I was motivated to send a text back to Luke. And yes, folks, Luke and I spend a lot of time sending notes and messages back and forth. And I enjoy writing things out for Luke, and I become thrilled when Luke sends me back something. So here's what I wrote back to Luke after hearing that song. Luke, I listened to the song. Once again, Brandon brought tears to my eyes. He did it with the song Gratitude. He did it with the song Graves into Gardens. And now he's done it a third time with the song Too Good to Not Believe. Here are some of the lines which occur in the song. And I just typed some of these out and sent this to Luke. I believe you're the wonder-working God. And at some point earlier in the song, he says, it's you, Jesus. It's you. He's talking directly about Jesus Christ. And then one line says, all the miracles I've seen. And oh my, that made me think about the miracles which I have witnessed that have happened to me here over the last 4 or 5 years. And the last couple of those miracles, it literally extended my life. I mean, I wasn't on the verge of dying right smack dab when the miracle took place, but eventually, if the miracle hadn't taken place, I would have died. I believe from prostate cancer, and then not too long ago, I'm told by my cardiologist that I had congestive heart failure. I've told you that story. And then when the echocardiogram was employed to prove that I had congestive heart failure, the ultrasound or echocardiogram demonstrated that I not only did I have a normal heart, that I had an exceptional heart. It was pumping that well. So all the miracles I've seen, and yes, folks, I have seen and I have witnessed and I have been the blessed recipient of miracles. And then he writes the phrase, too good not to believe. Now, at some point you just have to say, there's no doubt in my mind that Jesus Christ exists. Now, I think I was already there, and maybe because I believed that with such fervency, Jesus Christ was motivated to pour out that blessing upon me. The next line I wrote down in the song, and you heal because you love. You heal because you love. That's a beautiful line. That church organization of which I have once knew about, they spent more time talking about how God was going to get you, how God was going to curse you, how you were going to get thrown out of the church or kept out of the kingdom, than they did talking about the love of Jesus Christ. Now, folks, that's a major flaw. And for anyone that wants to go back to that organization, you are making a horrible mistake. And for anyone that wants to cling to those old days, old ideas, old ministers, old concepts, you are making a horrible mistake. And quite possibly a fatal mistake. Another line which we come to, all the miracles that we will see. And that line makes me think about in the end times. Now, when are the end times? I can't tell you specifically because I don't know. I don't know because it has not been shown to me. I know this. We're a whole lot closer to the end times than when I was 16 years of age, and for the first time, I began to hear the truth of God on the radio from Mr. Ted. And I know that in the end times, there will be miracles. And those miracles will be performed in conjunction, Jesus Christ working with what I call end-time prophets, or what I sometimes call end-time servants. Now, is that like 3 to 5 years away? It could be, especially depending upon the results of this upcoming election in November 5th. Is it 10 years away? Could be. 15? Could be. Could it be 20 years away? Yes, it could. It could be even further. Now, if it's 20 or more, I'm not going to be around to even have to worry about it, because I'll be safely tucked away in my coffin. I hope it's a coffin and not an urn. Don, please speak up if that ever occurs.
Okay. I'll take him, put him there with the rest of
No,
them.
I do not want to be in an urn, Don. I don't want to be with your your mother-in-law?
Mother-in-law, grandson.
No, no. But the miracles we will see. And see, these end-time prophets, they will, through the power of Jesus Christ, have the ability to pronounce miracles as often as they want. They don't even have to go to Jesus and say, Jesus, can I make this announcement? No, as often as they see fit, they will say it, and Jesus will back them up and perform the miracle. Oh, the miracles that we will see. And then he says, in another line, after everything I've seen, you're too good to not believe. You're too special not to believe. You're too magnificent not to believe. No, there's nothing that my God can't do. Remember, Don, sometimes young boys would look up to their fathers and say, well, my dad's the fastest, my dad's the strongest. Kids would brag on their dads. Well, that's what Brandon is doing here. He's bragging on his heavenly Father and his heavenly big brother. There's nothing that my God can't do. Yes, I know that he can do it. You're the wonder-working God. And he says again, you're too good not to believe. You're too good not to believe. Now, there were other lines, and some of these lines are repeated multiple times, but those were a few that I picked up and I was able to type out and send that to Luke. And I went on to say some more things. I said, Luke, I personally know and have witnessed many of the things of which Brandon sings. One of my names for Jesus is the Magnificent One. I have seen and I have witnessed him do many magnificent things and wonders. I'm not sure. I can't declare it. But your foot and your toe might be the most recent miracle of which I have heard. It is possible, now Don, listen to this and tell me if I'm right or wrong. It is possible that the bones in your foot and your toe could have been cracked like walnuts. But less than 2 days later, you are back on your feet and working. I am willing to suggest that Luke may be the recipient of the grace, mercy, and love of Jesus Christ.
Very true.
Amen. Thank you, Don. That's a little emotional for me, folks. Let me get myself under control. Now, my final sentence to Luke. He's the wonder-working God. He's too good not to believe. Michael C. So that was some communication which Luke and I have had over a short span. Now, again, I don't know exactly how that railroad tie ended up on Luke's foot. But I'm going to go back to that concept that the end of a railroad tie is a square angle. And that 90-degree angle is like a point. Let me ask you this, Don. Imagine a big, thick kitchen tool, like a knife.
Mm.
Now, I could take that knife,
A cleaver.
like a cleaver, and if I had it flat on your skin, I could take your arm. It's your arm I'm taking.
Thank you.
Yes, you're welcome. I could take your arm, and with the flat of that meat cleaver, I could smack your arm.
Mm-hmm.
It might sting a bit,
Mm-hmm.
but it would not hurt you.
I might cry.
Okay, but it wouldn't hurt you. But what if I took that meat cleaver and I turned it 90 degrees so that the back of the meat cleaver, not the blade, the back, it's a much smaller,
Mm-hmm.
but it's not sharpened. Now if I took your arm and whacked you with, again, it's your arm I'm
Uh-huh.
whacking, whacked you with the back side of that cleaver, I guarantee it's going to hurt, and it probably
Swell up.
will damage the skin significantly.
Blood vessels and all.
Blood vessels, and get blue, and might even break the skin. Now, let's take a third example. Let's take your other arm.
Ah.
Again, it's your
Yeah.
arm. Thank you for lending this to me. I'm sure you'll enjoy knowing that you're being immortalized. Now we're going to turn that meat cleaver to where the sharpened edge.
Mm.
And now we pull back that meat cleaver and come down in your arm. It's going to cut all the way into the bone.
Are you planning on eating my arm?
No, no. But my point is, in that illustration, if you get hit flat with a railroad tie, there's going to be a certain amount of damage. But if you get hit with that corner, that pointed corner,
Almost like your big toe.
yeah. I've had some situations, folks, here the last few years where I'll just put it this way, doctors were wanting to take my toe from me and I wouldn't give it to them. And I've still got it. Only because Jesus Christ intervened and saved my toe. Like Brandon was singing, the miracles I've seen. The miracles I've seen. And yet if you get hit by a corner coming down with a force of over 200 pounds, and again, it would depend upon, did you drop it on your toe from a foot above the ground, or did you drop it on your toe from your waist or even higher? Because the longer that railroad tie was going to move, the more momentum it would have, the more force it would have, and the more potential damage it could do. It sounds like to me that my good friend Luke, even though, and I wrote him a text, when I think about that railroad tie, I try to imagine it hitting my foot, and I cringe and I wince. The very thought of it is painful. And in less than a day and a half, Luke was back at work. Now remember that one time he says, "I'm done for"? I think when Luke wrote that, he was imagining that it's probably going to be 4, 5, 6 weeks before my foot is healthy enough where I can come back to work, or some extended period. In about a day and a half, he was back at work. I'm very thankful to Jesus Christ for Luke's sake. Now again, is Luke important to me? Absolutely he is. There's no doubt about that. And I don't try to hide that, and I'm not in one bit ashamed about that in any way. Luke is my friend. Luke is my brother. I plan to go through eternity with Luke as my friend and my brother. That's how highly I think of him, and how positive I am about his future. But I just wanted to share all of that. Brandon's song, and I haven't asked this of Luke. I'm willing to project that Luke sent me that song because Luke was acknowledging, I think I'm the recipient of a miracle. And yes, Luke, I think you were also. And I'm so thankful that you were. And so, can I ever cease to give thanks to Jesus Christ? Can I ever cease to feel gratitude to Jesus Christ and thanksgiving and praise and love? No, I can't. He is truly the magnificent one. And he's the one which is offering eternal life to all of us. So with that part of the story behind us, let's turn to the book of James. Because last week, the message, the title of the message was James chapter 1. And I think I mentioned things like wisdom and I could turn on my computer and find it. And I also know the last part was from verse 25, being a doer of the work and a doer of the word. Well, now we're going to turn our attention to chapter 2. Just as an aside, Don's daughter works at a restaurant called Cheddar's. I'm sure there are multiple franchises in different locations. She's been working as a waitress there for, what, a couple of years?
Several
3 years?
yeah, a lot of
Yeah.
years.
Well, Don just told me that some part of Cheddar's caught on fire. And so right now, Don doesn't know if his daughter is going to still have a job there. And then, I won't give all the details, it gets a little, shall we say, risque. But Sarah may be awarded a new baby to take care of. And I said, no, Don, it won't be Sarah taking care of the new baby. It will be you taking care of the new baby. True or false, Don?
Oh, true, but I want to introduce the baby to Uncle Mikey.
No, my house is too unorganized for a little baby. Well, you know the old expression, when it rains, it pours? Well, when Satan decides to cause trouble, he can cause a whole lot of trouble.
And it's around the feast time, usually.
Yep, in the spring and in the fall. Yeah, that's when things get stirred up. Right now I could go off on another direction, but I'm not going to do it. I have a lot of thoughts swirling around in my head. Don, is it safe to say that?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, but I don't think I should share them with the audience.
Probably not now, maybe.
Probably not now. I think that's wise. And so I'm just going to put my glasses back on. James chapter 2. Keep in mind, James is the half-brother of Jesus Christ. James and Jesus shared the same mother, Mary. Now, James was engendered by Joseph, yet Jesus was engendered using himself. I've never thought of it quite that way, but it was Jesus who was changed from the great, mighty being that he was, and he was shrunk down into the size of a human sperm cell. I remember, Don, the first time I announced that.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't planning on saying it. I had long held the idea, but I thought, oh, Michael, these people are not ready to hear it. Because those people of which I was speaking went back, most of them, to that previous era and that previous church, which didn't even enjoy even saying the name Jesus Christ. And I got up before a large crowd, and I said it, and there were people who just couldn't wait to get hold of Mr. Ted, to tell Mr. Ted the apocryphal, horrible thing which I had said in public. Undoubtedly, they were trying to get me in trouble because, folks, I'm always been around people who, instead of supporting me, are wanting to hurt me. That's been with me since I was a teenager. Oh yes, life has been fun. That was sarcasm, wasn't it, Don?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that was sarcasm. I just wish, Don, I could find a group of